In our series with how to work with essentially edge storage and edge data production in general. So the whole point with working with the edge is, unfortunately, in most cases your data storage is pretty limited, and we do need to find out ways to work with that in a more effective manner. And essentially some facts that we do need to make sure are correct while this happens is, we want to minimize the amount of storage we will be utilizing, and in cases where we have something like cellular connections, we do want to make sure that the amount of data being broadcasted out of your edge device to an external storage is kept to a minimum. So following that point, number one is, um, while working on Node-RED, while working on flows like this, it can be pretty easy to just have a direct out from your data source to be available while debugging or so. We do want to make sure that these kind of connections are off. So essentially you can put a toggle on this, or just throttle the output so that you can make sure that your data consumption on this end is the lowest. The other thing is, the last time we saw updating storage locally. So now we can have two forms of storage, like the ones we are going to look at in this video is, you can have storage in the form of data being stored in files. You can also have variables which are directly stored into files, which makes it a lot easier to use. You can have it in memory. The whole point behind this though is, you do want to make sure that all the data that is going into the store, especially data like sensor outputs, which can come in at a few kilohertz, you do want to make sure that you aggregate and downsample it so that the data goes into the external store correctly. So essentially, what is happening in this case is, you have one layer of data update where your local store is getting updated. Over here, you can store data as is. You'll need a retention policy of some sort over here. Now, this block can be in particular replaced with anything. It can be your influx store. It can be storing it into a file. It can be storing it into a buffer. Any of that sort. You can have your own mechanism here too. Then you have the next update and aggregation mechanism, which will allow you to send data to an external store. We will go over this block by block in the next video. But essentially, what we are looking at over here now is what your pipeline needs to look like for data going to an external store. We do also have to worry about data being overwritten when you have data coming in from multiple sources, and they may be writing the same edge store. So you do need a good update mechanism in both cases over here, so that overwrites and locks are taken care of. And beyond this, essentially anything which has to do with relational databases or so, normally aggregation on the front of relational databases can be pretty tough, but we can follow a pipeline where your data from time series can be merged and converted into a more usable format for your relational databases. So these are just some of the do's and don'ts in this case. We will be looking at this in more depth in the next video.